This is the second teaching on resistance. It's day 13, and we're going to devote a whole teaching to perfectionism because perfectionism is a form of resistance that's very common today. And one of the reasons is because of corporate advertising and the media, I believe. And we are bombarded with messaging telling us about if only, for example, if only we had whiter teeth, if only we had a different car, if only we had the latest dishwasher, whatever it might be, we are indirectly being encouraged to buy something to fix something that's wrong with us or with something in our environment. And so it takes a great degree of self-awareness to pull back from that and say, now wait a minute here, what's really true? And on this scale you see on the screen, it's particularly challenging sometimes to calibrate between average, good, excellent, and perfect. If something's really important to us, like our desideratum, then we probably want to be striving for excellence most of the time. However, consistently striving for perfection is likely to lead to suffering. We cannot all be perfect all of the time. And here are some quotes to give us encouragement about perfectionism. The one from Salvador Dali, the famous surrealist: have no fear of perfection, you'll never reach it, kind of a humorous quote. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, talks about how he failed so often, and yet he reframed that and said, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. I didn't really fail. And Pema Chodron, the wonderful spiritual Buddhist teacher, says that as long as our orientation is toward perfection, we will never learn about unconditional friendship with ourselves, nor will we find compassion. Here's a lovely quote from the German philosopher Goethe: certain flaws are necessary for the whole. It would seem strange if old friends lacked certain quirks. Well, isn't that wonderfully true? We are loved by others for our quirks, not for our perfection. And then even from a TV show, Ally McBeal, and this is so relevant for our work on intention, sometimes when you hold out for everything, you walk away with nothing. This next page is a list of quotes from famous singers, actors, actresses, media personalities, all of whom are known for their suffering. They've had very difficult lives, and they all have self-declared themselves as perfectionists. Michael Jackson, Martha Stewart, Barbra Streisand, Tiger Woods, Dennis Quaid, and I won't read all of these. You are welcome to read through them yourself. And if you go and do this search yourself and just look for quotes on perfectionism, you will find pages of quotes from famous media personalities. And it's extraordinary that there is this very challenging self-calibration between excellence and perfection. Excellence, when it comes from a place of alignment with our intention and with our feeling statement, that's a wonderfully healthy thing. Perfection very often is not going to be in alignment with our feeling statement. And so that's one way you can calibrate, self-calibrate, is ask yourself a question. If you are looking at taking the next step in your plan and you're finding that you're struggling with what might be perfectionism, go back to your feeling statement. Is this feeling joyful? Is this feeling purposeful? Is this feeling safe? Is this feeling vital? Whatever it is that those feelings are in your feeling statement, those are going to be your guide to keep you from being overwhelmed by perfectionism. And here's an example of someone who has dealt well with perfectionism in his writing career. And I heard Wayne Dyer speak in the late 1980s, and I'm assuming that this is still true. He has had his share of struggles. However, in his writing life, he's been extraordinarily successful. And he realized early on that the best way for him to write was to work with an editor. So what he does is he goes and he writes in a quiet place, longhand, because that is what works best for him. He's a very self-aware man. And then he turns all that longhand paperwork over to an editor. It's somebody that he has worked with for many, many, many years. They have a very good relationship in this part of his life. And that is how he deals with editing. He does not try to go back and rewrite his own work, which is what so many authors do. He just lets it go. And we'll be talking about that later in the program, this concept of the importance of being able to let it go. And yes, I'm sure he reads what he's written after it's been edited, and yet he doesn't go through that process of self-judgment and criticism that so often happens with editing. So this is the end of the teaching on perfectionism. Remember to self-calibrate with your wonderful feeling statement, and we'll now move on to some other tools and techniques to work with resistance.